Representative J.J. Humphrey. Hey, I want to let everybody know I am running for lieutenant governor. We forget to announce that quite often. And hey, you can go to jj4ok.com, jj4ok.com. Keep up with us, help us out, get a t-shirt, do all that kind of stuff. Bob, we got to jump right in today. So I got my good friend Bobby Cleveland with us at all time. Thank you for being here, Bob. But we got to jump in because we got so much to cover, and we always like to talk about our pet peeve when we start off. So, Bob, you know what my pet peeve is today?
What is it?
Bob, it's when the news media gives absolutely fake news when they know it's fake. I've been watching. Have you been seeing this? MSNBC, that's a lot of alphabet. MSNBC did a deal on the No Kings, protest, the No Kings protest there in Boston. And man, if you looked, it looked like millions and millions of people there, and they were claiming millions of people there. And then it turned out what they were showing was not from October 18th. They were showing something from August the 19th of 2017 or something. So some other event so they didn't even have the true event. Bob, there ought to be something they can do if fake news gets caught doing that kind of stuff. They ought to be fined, or they ought to be, what do they call that? Censored, So what do you think, Bob?
Yeah, but I think that's to be expected. Where did you hear this at?
Well, Bob, as usual, I hear it on the social media, but then I tried to check it out and confirm it, and it does seem to be that that's what happened. So if it's true, they ought to do something to MSNBC for that kind of intentional lying. If people intentionally lie, they ought to be able to shut them down, take them off the air, or at least find the snot out of them, Bob. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not cool.
That's definitely wrong. That's definitely wrong. Bob, I got one more pet peeve. Just one more pet peeve. I know we're only supposed to have one, but I have two today. You know what? Your wife should not unplug your coffee machine. So I go in there and make coffee, Bob. I'm coming down here. I got it all ready early, looking up stuff, and I made me a cup of coffee, and then I go in there last minute to grab it. Guess what? It ain't made because she had unplugged the coffee machine. That there ought to be something criminal charge or something for unplugging a man's coffee machine, Bob.
Yeah,
it's just wrong on so many levels.
Yeah, I understand that.
Hey, we got it. We got so much to get into today. So today, what we're going to do before we start talking about the issue that I want to talk about, I want to just kind of highlight, because today I didn't know whether to whether to talk about what issue, because there's so many issues across the state going on. So one of the big issues, Bob, I don't know if you heard this morning around 3 a.m., 4 a.m., that they had a shooting involving 3 people shot, is what I understand, at OSU campus. So 3 people shot at OSU campus. My understanding right now, they're in a level 1 trauma center, either in Tulsa, one's in Tulsa, or 2's in Oklahoma City, or 2's in Tulsa, but they're in multiple, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, all of them in a level 1 trauma center is what I was told. So big story. We're keeping up on that. They got a big story, Bob, huge story in Salisaw, where some kids assaulted another kid on the playground, kind of a sexual type assault. It wasn't actual any penetration or something like that, kind of just doing some, sexual things to this kid, threw him down, embarrassed him, sexual stuff. I would still call it a sexual assault, but the school didn't come out with what they were doing. People are very, very mad. So it looks like they're going to have a walkout on the 21st at that school. So it looks like a walkout on that school 21st. Bob, I also started to do a follow-up on what we did last week. Inmate that we talked about last week that DOC has hidden from me and the family, won't let the family know. This inmate was beaten, is unconscious, has staples all the way across his head this way and all the way across this way. unconscious. They're not letting the family know anything, and they hid the family. You know, I was going to go see this inmate at OU. They moved him, I think, just to keep me from seeing him. Anyways, I think they've moved him to Lindsay, but I'm not sure. We don't know where he's been moved. So again, here's DLC hiding an inmate from his family, from me when he's unconscious. It's just, Bob, it's just unheard of. I mean, you talk about some sorry folks there in the.
Well, they're putting themselves above everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, they don't answer to nobody, Bob. It's unreal at what's going on, and again, that's kind of one of the things that we're really kind of tie into what we're talking about today, because we just got these people who, Bob, I put out a video a while ago. I can't remember if I said that in that video, but somebody said, I don't know who said it, that power tends to corrupt. Power tends to corrupt, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Bob, we got a lot of corruption going on in these powerful positions.
Well, you know who said that, don't you?
No, J.J. Humphrey?
No, Bobby Cleveland.
I maybe that's where I heard it, Bob. Maybe that's where I heard it. It could be. It might be. Hey, Bob, another thing that's happened is that Oklahoma City, we had an inmate that was put in the county jail. Bob, this is going to be one of the worst county jails in the United States. I think we rate the most violent jail in the United States there in Oklahoma County. And they put that inmate in there in less than 24 hours. He was beaten unconscious. Again, is unconscious there in Oklahoma City Hospital. So, Bob, massive problems with this kind of behavior out of the Department of Corrections, out of the jail. We're having inmates beaten. We're having inmates killed. We're having all of these things, extortions, rapes, all of this stuff, and nobody wants to call it onto the carpet. Nobody wants to address these things. Just sweep another one under the rug, sweep another under the rug, hide them, do whatever, you know. So we got a lot of problems right there. But Bob, I tell you what I want to discuss today, and I'm going to have to run really quickly out to my truck, Bob, and I've got to get a piece of paper here in a minute. So I'm going to let you explain some things going on, see how much you pay attention. We're going to give you a test, Bob. So here's what's going on. We are going to talk today about OSU, and not in OSU, Stillwater, Payne County. So Payne County, because there are so many things going on in Payne County. And so, Bob, one of the things that we're going to start with is the rape case that is going to be Jesse Butler. So I'm going to get my piece of paper that is very important that I forgot to grab. So if you'll tell them kind of who Jesse Butler is, which is the young man that was in high school, you know, sexual crimes and what happened right there. I'll be right back.
Well, this guy had several girls in high school. He had raped them. What he was doing, he was choking them till they passed out, and then had sex with them. And that's happened. I think he even admitted to it in court. And but the deal is that he's had, I think it's 9 occasions that they had against him that what he's been doing this. Well, the judge, which is a friend of Oklahoma State University, if I understand, and she just gave this guy 150 hours, 500, 100, 200 hours.
140, I think, Bob.
All right, go ahead. Take it over.
Yeah. So, again, what Bob was talking about there with this kid, multiple sex crimes. Guys, if you'll go pull him up, it's all over the internet, everything. Go pull up the amount of sex crimes that this guy had. Now, Bob, again, we're just kind of reporting what we've been told, what we've heard. So, again, one of the things that I heard was that he choked one of his victims within 32 seconds of dying, which she came back to that basically.
Now, wait a minute, just a second. Back up. We're not, you said we're doing this, some is guessing basically, but the judge is absolutely happened.
Oh, it happened. No question. It happened. But what I'm talking about, you know, details the details of the sexual assault this is what I'm getting reported. No, it's no question. This happened. He's been cut a break. He had multiple sex charges. He was going to be tried as an adult. He was going to receive, I think, 75 years.
He admitted it.
Judge steps in, says, you know what? We're going to file under the Youthful Offender Act. Why would you file under the Youthful Offender Act? Bob, what do you think the reason was?
Be the amount of time you can serve.
Well, it cut down on everything, and it cut down on it being a record. But why would a judge do that? Why would a judge change that from him being tried as an adult with all these heinous crimes and reverse that and say, no, we're going to keep him as a youthful offender so nobody knows that he's a sexual predator? Why would a judge? What would be?
They decided though under the conditions that they would file under an adult.
Right? Yeah, he had been filed. My understanding, he had already been found guilty and was going to be sentenced as an adult, which would be appropriate. I mean, the guy's 17. He's old enough to know better on all this. And he was going to be sentenced under as an adult, and he was going to be given somewhere like 75 years or something. And now you got to go back and look at all the charges. And again, what I was saying a while ago, if you go off what's kind of being reported, one of the things was he raped and he choked this girl out almost 32 seconds away from death. She comes conscious again, and he decides he needs to do it again because he didn't videotape it. So he videotapes. So apparently some of this on videotape. If all that be true, Bob, they should have given him life. I mean, I don't have any problem. People tend to hear us, and we're always fighting because inmates have been beaten, or we're coming on the side of inmates, and people don't think that me and you may be on the side of law and order. But guys, we're on the side of law and order. I mean, you won't find it. I promise you, I probably put more people in jail than anybody you know. I mean, I've done it over 30-something years, and I mean, if you're guilty, you're guilty, and there's a consequence to your actions.
Well, but several of those are a group of correction officers beat a guy up.
Yeah, and we call it, but Bob, we just call strikes and fouls. You know what? Correctional officers don't need to be beaten. You're a professional. You don't beat, the police don't beat up people. Now, guess what? If I go in there and they lay hands on me and it's a fight till I use the minimum amount of force necessary to control the subject. That's what happens. I use the minimum amount. Now, the minimum amount may be that it's toe-to-toe and we're going at it. You know what I'm saying? But there's nothing that says I got to take a beating just to keep from touching this guy. The officers can protect yourselves. But again, we call out.
The deal is, though, JJ, we put people in prison. Some of them deserve to be in prison. Absolutely. They just can't be out and they just can't make it in public. But you got some guys that are innocent in there. But what happens is you've got people who are beating up inmates, and they're phony. They'll say, well, he died, he hung himself when he only had 6 months before he could get out. Well, Bob, there's more to it than just that.
Yeah, and my point with all that is we call strikes and fouls. If they're doing that in prison and it's not should be done, we call it out. But if we have a guy right here, even though he's 17, I hate to see a 17-year-old go into that kind, because when you put that 17-year-old in there with these kind of people, guess what? He's the one going to get assaulted. But
he pleaded guilty.
Pled guilty, but this judge stepped in. Payne County judge steps in and says, "Oh no, we're going to put him under Youthful Offender Act." Now,
JJ, just a real quick question, so I got to get it all straight. Is that where you were having trouble with getting your petition?
Absolutely. This is all tied in. All of it ties in. Because, okay. Bob, here's what happened. This kid's dad, my understanding, is with OSU. He's the athletic director. Mom works for OSU, is what I'm told. Got some other family. So here's the deal. The guy's got political clout. And this judge steps in for political purposes, does the family a favor, and all these girls that's been assaulted, too bad. We're going to do the family a favor, another little political favor here, and we're going to erase this criminal sex offender, heinous sex offender. We're going to erase his record and let him have 140 hours and put him back on the street so he can go back to assaulting women. That's what we've done. And then if you look at our grand jury, so here we are on a grand jury with all these kind of things going on in Payne County. The people are wanting to have a voice. The people are saying, okay, we need to have our own grand jury so that we can hold these kind of acts accountable. Okay. And guess what? We have, of course, this thing got political. I mean, it got political, Bob, because you have some of the big names in the state all over. We had the Supreme Court Justice was on this thing. He was subject of it. You have the Speaker of the House on it. You have former Speaker of the House. You got Gettner Drummond's office on it. You got everybody who's who in Oklahoma on this thing.
That's on the grand jury, right?
Huh?
That was on the grand jury petition?
Yes, on that grand jury petition.
Right.
And so, again, here's the deal, Bob. Right after this thing gets filed, so I mean just immediately after it gets filed, the guy that's organizing this, he'd had a lot of problems. We've had him on here numerous times. Darrell Dougherty, he's had numerous problems with DHS, Payne County Police Department, Payne County DA, Payne County judges, Noble County judge. He's had problems with all of these. We have multiple cases where there's problems up there. So we file this grand jury. He's the chief organizer. Immediately after that, his kid comes and alleges more abuse. He takes the kid down to the police department. The kid reports it to the police department. That is going to require a hearing by the court to determine if that abuse is legit and where should he be placed. They got to do it, Bob. I mean, they have to do it. The court there, Judge Reese, says, and I know this for a fact because I talked to him. Judge Reese says, no, I'm going to recuse because I'm over that grand jury and Darrell's the main one on that grand jury. Well, that's fine. He can recuse. That's okay. He can bow out of it, but he's got to appoint somebody. And that was the problem. He was saying, well, I've done told this judge I'm not in it. And this judge saying, no, I've not received anything. So while them two are telling us, but not telling each other, then nobody's having a hearing. And we're going 3 weeks with no hearing that they're supposed to have a hearing within 72 hours, 24 hours, 72 hours, something like that. So Darrell is going to this court. He's going to Supreme Court every day. I mean, this guy's going every day and saying, hey, I've got to have a hearing. I've got my kid. I'm not taking him back and putting him in that abusive situation until something's decided. They won't do anything. Then the police show up, going to get the kid. Darrell says, and my understanding, all this is on a video camera. Darrell says, I'm not going to give you my kid to be put in an abusive home because I believe that's illegal and neglect. But if you want my kid, there he is. And if you take him, I believe y'all are breaking the law because he's already told y'all that he's being abused. And if you put him back in that abuse, think y'all are breaking the law. Those officers stopped and said, we're going to go talk to our superiors and we're going to come back. Guess what? That's not obstruction. When you say, there he is, you get him. I'm out of the way. There he is. You get him. I'm not going to stand in your way. Guess what? That is not obstruction. They charge him with obstruction, 3 counts, kidnapping or child stealing, $1 million bond. Now, Bob, this is a political setup from the jump street. It's all political. Another judge from Noble County who was subject on that grand jury. The DA who filed those charges was subject on the grand jury. How does these people who are subject go after this person? How does the judge who said, I got to recuse out of your kid's case, but I can sign off on all this, even though, how does all of that happen? And again, it's all political. You got to look at how many political people showed up the same day that they go to issuing warrants, multiple warrants out of counties, out of judges who had been ordered timeout. You got a judge over in Noble County that they filed on for, disqualification. And so, Bob, if I file a disqualification, it means timeout. So how did all of these people that have all of this conflict issue 7 different charges, warrants, and $1 million bond. You don't see $1 million bond on Jack the Ripper, Bob. You know, so this week on Friday, they met, continued the case. So here's this guy having to hire high dollar lawyers. He's got a good lawyer, by the way, Bob. So you remember, used to be Judge Stice?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's from down there in your country.
Yeah, he's good.
I would say Judge Stice, I've been impressed with him. You know, I've followed him on a case that I'm very interested in that he stood up and did. But anyways, you know, I mean, he ain't going to be cheap. I can tell you that Judge Stice is now a private attorney. He ain't going to be no cheap attorney. And so again, here's Darrell forced to spend a lot of money. Here's more continuance. So they got this hold over his head, you know, so he's not going to be able to go out and do the things against the court over a political, Bob, I mean, all political. You got this rapist that Payne Court turns loose, and then you have Darrell's case continuing on, that they're just holding this over his head. Bob, it's unbelievable.
It's corruption. Is that a good word? Corruption?
Well, yeah, and Bob, you know, if you look up, this is what I don't get. This is what do you do when you have all of the proof? So again, if you look in the U.S. code, and so you have the state and you have the federal code, and the feds trump. So if there's something, one of them is here and one of them's here, this U.S. code overrides this code, okay? Is my understanding. Now, you have in U.S. code, it even talks about that you can't have political and judges getting together, conspiring, collaborating to shut down, to stop a grand jury. Now, in this grand jury, the judge allowed, and Bob, you got to get this. You go in, you have a petition for a grand jury. All that is saying, yes, you can go out and collect signatures. There's nothing set yet. It hasn't been set. The grand jury does not even exist yet. What exists is a petition. Now, we had people on that petition who immediately jumped off. We had one senator who filed to get off. Well, we haven't even said it. You can't get off until we get it set. But he comes in, and this judge allows him to pull his name. Well, Judge, we haven't done anything on the petition. You've already okayed the petition. We can't do anything until you set it. Okay, but he's allowed people to get off. And the question is, why is this senator who agreed that there was such, corruption and problems that we needed a grand jury, and who signed, comes back later and said, well, I didn't understand what I was signing. Now, you're a pretty highly educated individual. I mean, I understood what I was signing. I would say that he's more educated than me. You know what I'm saying? And I understood what I was signing. So why would this individual pull off of this so quick? And I can tell you, I would bet the family farm that he received a call, and I can tell you that I'll bet you $100 he was politically pressured, very, very politically pressured to pull off of this thing. Not only did he pull off, but
they gave him something else too. Pull off this, and you could do this or that, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and Bob, he had signatures that he failed to turn in. That now he just, I'm done. Well, guess what? You can't just be done. If you've collected signatures, you have a duty. Those people said, we want to be on this thing. You can't just withhold, because Bob, you know what they call that?
What?
It's called obstruction. Okay. It's obstruction. Now, when political people file on a petition that hasn't been set yet, they just file on a petition, and they file in to say, we want to quash this. We want to stomp this out. We want to stop it. If you go over and look at the U.S. code, it's my understanding that if you are trying to stop a grand jury, if a judge and political people conspire together to try to stop a grand jury, it is obstruction. It is against the law. And so again, here you have this judge allowing these people to file into this petition, and even on the face of the petition, or on the face of the filing, not the petition, but on the face of what they filed, motion to quash. So if you look at motion to quash, it means we're going to stomp this thing out. We're going to kill this grand jury. Now that's what they filed. The filing itself, I think, is against the law. I think that they violated the law. But Bob, there's just so many things of this judge letting in, letting out. But here's another case that's going on. While all this is going on, we got a grandma there in Cushing that her grandchild gets dropped off. She looks at the grandchild, said, takes the grandchild to the doctor. The doctor, my understanding, said, we're going to get out of Payne County, I think is what happened. But anyways, this doctor takes the kid over to some more doctors, I think, over in Edmond, possibly. Those doctors, see the patient, see the little girl, examine her, and say, yeah, there's some abuse occurred here. And then the state steps in. So Bob, and again, I want to stop right here and tell people, it sounds like we're attacking DHS all the time. We're attacking DHS on the wrong stuff. The administration of DHS ought to be taken out in the street and whipped, in my opinion. But there are good people in DHS. There are great workers. And you always want to point out when they do it great and when they do it right. So here's the case. Grandma takes the kid. Doctor recognizes it. Goes, gets another opinion from some doctors. DHS steps in, takes the kid. Kudos to everybody. That's the way she's supposed to be. Except for, my understanding, the perp shows up, the abuser shows up, wants the kid back. Grandma says, I don't have the kid. Kid's in DHS custody, in state custody. He goes down to the sheriff's office. They go over to the DA's office. The DA writes a writ saying, bring the kid back. You don't have authority to have the kid. You bring the kid back. Well, grandma's like, I can't bring the kid back. The kid's in state custody. The DA issues a warrant. And again, I haven't seen if the judge signed off. I've not seen the DA issue that. Usually you have a judge issue a warrant and there's a warrant. This was just an order to arrest. I didn't see whether that was approved by a judge or not, but I'm going to assume that it has to be. But anyways, they arrest grandma and put grandma in jail. So here in Payne County, they're letting rapists go with the little community service and expunging their record because of political favor. It appears political favor. Then they arrest a person for trying to get a hearing on abuse on their kid. And again, it appears totally political that they arrest him and put $1 million bond. That you just don't get any more political. I mean, if nothing else, the $1 million bond verifies this was all political. Them letting a judge come over in another county who was on the list of the grand jury, who was under a disqualification, which means he can't get into these cases, and he's from a separate county. How was he even allowed to come over in another county and issue warrants for this guy? Unbelievable. All of it on the same day. You think there's no way that was coordinated, Bob? Do you think that all of these people filed in the case the same day, that judge comes over from another case, county, and issues 2 cases the same day, and this judge stays late and issues 5 charges and $1 million bond? And oh, Bob, by the way, Darrell gets arrested on 28th. That's on a Thursday night. Okay. So the courthouse is open on Friday. All right. So he's arrested on Thursday night. Courthouse open on Friday. Now, Labor Day is the following, that weekend, and Monday's Labor Day. So they're going to have a holiday. The courthouse shut down Monday. Okay. Now we're looking on Friday. Where's the DA's charges? Where the DA had filed nothing. There's nothing in this case showing the DA filed charges. So Tuesday morning, get up there, and all this is documented. Tuesday morning, go to the court clerk. Where's the DA's probable cause? Where's the DA's paperwork saying they're the ones ordered these charges on Darrell? Guess what? They're not there. I'd come out and said, well, it looks like the judge is took off the robe and acting as DA and there. You know, sometime later that afternoon on Tuesday, they do file the report from the DA, which, by the way, was subject to the grand jury. How is this DA filing charges on this guy when she's the subject of the grand jury? Looks pretty sketchy, Bob. But here's where it gets really sketchy. This is where she turns sideways, okay? She filed all this on Tuesday, but it's file stamped for Thursday. Okay, so it's file stamped August the 28th. Now, here's the deal. We were there in the morning on that Tuesday of September the 2nd. So we're there September the 2nd, early in the morning, 9 o'clock-ish. Hey, do you have any paperwork? Nope, no paperwork. There's absolutely no paperwork. No paperwork. That's very well documented. Very well documented. Now, it wouldn't have been no big deal if she turned it in and it's sitting over in a tray and they get that and they stamp it. But if they do that, it should have September 2nd on it. It shouldn't have, oh yeah, this was turned in August 28th. That's backdating. That's that's bad juju. That's a no-no. So what they did, they falsified those records, and we can prove that. We can prove they falsified records, backdated these records to show that the DA did. Again, the DA's falsifying records. They're backdating records. You talk about sketchy $1 million bond, done at night, done after. You know, these are so big of charges. He'd been up there for 3 weeks begging for something. And this is so important. We're going to stay on certain night after all these people show up. We're going to stay after 5 o'clock and we're going to get this warrant done. We're going to backdate the paperwork and we're going to set $1 million bond. Bob, you talk about sketchy as hell. That's sketchy as hell. I mean, it's unreal. And then you're starting to let all these people in who have no authority to get in this thing. It's Bob, is it just me, or do you find that pretty alarming?
It's pretty bad. If everything that you say is accurate, that is totally corrupt.
Well, Bob, I'm gonna read y'all. So here's what I've got. We went to court on the 18th of September on this case, on this grand jury case, and so OSCN is the court record. I'm going to read y'all what they wrote on the court record. It says, Judge Reese, this comes on for hearing to determine whether all the requirements necessary to impanel a grand jury have been met. Petitioner Darrell Dougherty appears in person and pro se. Petitioner Justin Humphrey appears in person and pro se. Interested party, Charles McCall appears by attorney. Robert Campbell, interested party. Kyle Hilbert appears by attorney. Scott Henderson, the court finds interested party McCall and interested party Hilbert have standing in the case. The court finds that the petitioners have no duty to provide notice to interested parties. Okay, now here's the deal. They don't have standing in the case. This would be like, Bob, if I'm a DA and I file on you, naturally, you'd love to run up there and go, hey, I don't think I should be on that. But that's what your hearing is for. You don't have standing come in and say, I think I ought to be taken off this. Who are they that they can have that kind of standing? Who is this judge that they would do that? That you can't do. I mean, you don't have that kind of standing. The standing, and he took hours to explain standing. I mean, standing is just simple, easy to understand, guys. Standing is, do you have a reason to be in here? Is there something that involves you? Now, they're involved, but they don't have standing because they don't have anything yet. Now, once it's set, now if you get the signatures and now you set a grand jury, now you do have standing. Now you have a reason to come in here and say, hey, I shouldn't be on here. And again, they've got a legitimate argument as whether they should or should not be on there. I have no problem with that. But they don't have a reason to kill the grand jury. And that's what they did. They come in and killed the grand jury. And they don't have standing to kill the grand jury. If they want to argue, should we be off of it, that's fine. When it's seated and they have a reason to argue, but we don't want our name associated with the petition. Well, who does want their name associated with the petition? Okay, but you can't argue whether you've done something or not till the petition's granted, and then you argue should you or should you not. But to try to kill the grand jury is absolutely wrong. It's obstruction. In my opinion, I don't want to act like I'm a legal authority. The court hears the argument on interested parties' motion to quash, meaning we're trying to kill the thing. The court sustains the motion to quash. The court hears argument on the signatures requirements and signature verification. The court finds that the board has, now I want y'all to listen to this because it's on court record. The court finds that the board had certified the signatures. The court finds the required number of signatures were not met. Petition is null and void. All pending motions are deemed mute, meaning worthless. Okay. So he's saying we terminate that. Everything else after here is a mute cause because we certified this election numbers were not legit.
Now, who certifies it? The board, like the election board?
The board. Now, Bob, what he didn't put in there is that old JJ was sitting there, and when he said we certified, I jumped up and said, Your Honor, I would just like to ask you, how did y'all certify those numbers when the board never met? I checked and the board never met, Your Honor. He said, Bob, that's not my problem. Okay. I said, well, Your Honor, I think it is your problem. I think you are obligated to see if what you're saying is true. And did they actually meet and did they actually certify these numbers before you sit up here and say that they are certified? Not my problem. I talked to the board secretary and she gave me these numbers. She gave me this. Okay. Well, my understanding is he can't talk directly. And that's another violation for him to be talking directly and calling over there and having communications, improper communications with the board secretary. That's not legit. That's not the way you're supposed to do that. My understanding. But my other understanding was no certified numbers. Now, I just read it to you. He said they were certified. Check this out, Bob. Letter that I wrote on October the 3rd. I wrote a letter to Chairman Walravan. Okay, I think's how he pronounces his name. So this is to
Chairman of the election board.
Chairman of the election board.
Okay.
Distinguished Chairman Walravan. I am writing to request verification that the signatures for a grand jury petition GJ 2025-1 in Payne County have been certified by the Payne County Election Board. On September 18, 2025, it was presented in the courtroom by the Honorable Judge Jason Reese that these signatures have been, in fact, certified by the election board. However, there are no records from the election board that would show this has taken place. Can you please verify if the board has certified the petition signatures? Here's what he responds. Honorable Representative Humphrey. You like it, don't you, Bob? Honorable.
Yeah,
Honorable.
that's good.
I felt like, ooh, look at there. That's not often I get called that. Honorable Representative Humphrey. I cannot verify that Payne County Election Board, as in myself, Republican member, the Democrat member, and the election board secretary, certified the signatures for CJ 25-1 in Payne County. The Payne County Election Board, 3 members, did not meet, review, or certify signatures. Let me read that again. The Payne County Election Board did not meet, review, or certify signatures. Now, Bob, let me ask you a question.
What'd you do with it then?
Well, what do you do with it? But the other question is that election board secretary, is she in trouble if she called over and said, I'm giving you certified numbers? Is that fraud?
I think so.
I would think it's perjury, fraud. You committed a fraud on the court, claiming to have something, and you're telling this judge. Now, again, the judge ain't supposed to have direct communication. So is that misconduct on his behalf? And if the judge had knowledge that these weren't certified, is he conducting more?
Okay, JJ, you have all that. So what are you going to do with it?
Well, Bob, we went and filed Friday. This has all been filed to the Supreme Court Justice. Now, I will tell you, all of this has all been in front of the Supreme Court Justice. That's why the Supreme Court Justice top guy is on the grand jury, because we've given him stuff in the past. They've done absolutely nothing. All of this stuff with Darrell's kid and not being heard. And I personally went in there 2 to 3 times myself, turned stuff in on that to the Supreme Court, had conversations with what they call their referee, and he keeps up to date. He's got a very good working knowledge of what's going on, all the pieces and playing. And again, they've done absolutely nothing. So here we're going to turn this in. I have already turned it in. So it's sitting on the Supreme Court. They received that on Friday. So we put a motion in on Friday. And so again, we're going to wait and see, is this court going to actually do something? Because again, we have all kinds of evidence of obstruction. We have all kinds of evidence that this was terminated falsely. Fraud, again, was that done intentionally? Was that done on purpose? I don't see how it wasn't done on purpose. How can you say that we certified it when you never met? I mean, that's just a blatant lie. And again, he's been in communications with her. I would think he would know it was a blatant lie. He was told sitting there in court that it was a blatant lie, and he refused to even check it. So again, he's just as responsible, I would say. And so again, what's going to happen is I'm going to tell you what I'm for. I'm for restarting the grand jury, because this one has been illegally terminated. And I'm for starting another grand jury very, very quickly. And I'm for getting signatures for another grand jury. And I'm for taking the grand jury that we did recently, this one, and just adding a few more names. And what I would do, I would throw every one of those Supreme Court justices on that. People go, well, JJ, that's pretty bold. That's pretty. Well, guess what? You know what? If you're not going to do your job, if you're not, Bob, if you go back into our country's history, the founders did not set up the judicial to be the supreme. We're set up in 3 separate offices. You know what I mean? We have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. So 3 different branches is what they call it.
Uh-huh.
Guess which one of those is going to be the weakest branch?
Which one?
Supposed to be judicial. Judicial's supposed to be. But if you've been watching, for instance, I'll give you a great example. The president has just come out with stuff on national security. Now, whether that be taking out illegal gangs who are bringing dope in, and he's protecting us, guess what? They file on that. If it's going out to Seattle to protect our ICE buildings, our federal buildings, to stop domestic terrorism, guess what? The courts are saying, nope, you're going to have to hold off on that. Bob, whether it's illegals, every time we do something on illegals, they're filing on that. The court has no authority. I mean, 0 authority on the executive branch on national security. But we see the court elevating their self and saying, nope, Mr. President, you will answer to us. And yeah, you got elected by all the people to protect this country and do the stuff you're doing. But guess what? We're going to tell you what you can do. And many times they're unelected bureaucrats. That's not the way. That's not the way we're set up. And again, if you would see Congress, you know what Congress could do?
What?
Congress could walk in there and say, you know what? Y'all have fun operating in the dark. Y'all going to do such stupid blind justice. You don't need lights. We'll operate in the dark. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to do that stupidity, guess what? Y'all don't need clerks. You don't need anything. We're going to cut your whole budget. And Bob, the government could do that with DHS. Any of these, state, federal, we could control these agencies that are completely out of control, that are rogue, bureaucrats that are doing this kind of thing. And these attorneys like this, these political attorneys, guess what? There is a process. So there's a process to hold our government and our judges when we have corruption in our government and in our judges. There's a process there to stop that, to hold that accountable. Guess what that process is?
What?
Grand jury. That's the people, getting together and saying, we're going to look at this ourselves. We're going to set a grand jury and we're going to hold these people accountable. Okay. Now, Bob, you have had grand jury attempts in Grady County, Oklahoma County, Garfield County, Wagner County, Tulsa County, Payne County. And every one of these have been met with obstructions. Now, I say that in Grady County, I don't know. But Bob, in Oklahoma County, you're required to have a hearing on this grand jury petition. Guess how many hearings we've had on the grand jury petition in Oklahoma County?
How many?
That would be 0, Bob. We never got a hearing. Oh, you got a little vote. You got a little vote for Daisy. So we have zero hearings in Oklahoma County. So that's why we went over to the Supreme Court Justice and we said, yo, Your Honor, we did what they call an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief. And so we filed a friend of the court brief and we said, hey, Judge, they're not doing what they're supposed to do in Oklahoma County. Now, we didn't by accident put this Payne County case on this Oklahoma County because what we said was, we filed all this under DHS because DHS is in Oklahoma County. So that's how we filed in Oklahoma County. And then this judge in Oklahoma City said, no, we're not going to do anything. Then this judge over the Supreme Court said, we're not going to do anything. Now, there's an act called the Kelsey Briggs Act. Kelsey Briggs is where a kid, and Bob, you were you in the representative house when they had that Kelsey Briggs? Are you part of voting this legislation?
It sounds familiar, JJ, but I can't swear to it.
Well, what happened is Kelsey Briggs was abused and abused and abused, right. And her abuser finally killed her and put her in a deep freeze. And they finally discovered her body in this deep freeze, and it caused a nationwide reaction. And so Oklahoma did the knee-jerk reaction and started passing all these laws called the Kelsey Briggs Act. Well, one of the things in the Kelsey Briggs Act, it's saying that you can't wait and have somebody, a kid being abused. You can't let kids be abused and do nothing. You can't go, oh, well, that kid's being abused, so we're going to have a hearing 90 days from now. You can't do that. Right. You got to act immediately. And so that's what we're coming to the courts and saying under the Kelsey Briggs Act, doesn't matter whether we get a daggum petition or not, doesn't matter whether we're getting signatures, we're handing you the evidence of kids being abused across the state of Oklahoma, and you have done nothing. So here we are, actually a year and a half arguing about kids being waterboarded. And guys, I say that and most people don't get that. Kids being tortured at a mental health. Check it out. Pull up the New York Times did an article on it. New York Times is doing an article on it, and you don't hear any reporting coming out of Oklahoma on kids being waterboarded at a mental health institution. Kids being molested at our detention centers Not one. We've turned in multiple ones. And Bob, they're doing nothing. And so we bring this to all of our government, to all of these judges, and guess what their response is? That's, yeah, it's like, well,
okay,
you want us
JJ, we got 10 minutes. So you have all this information. So what is the move? How are they going to change this sentencing of public, making the guy go ahead?
No. I've got you. I mean, how do you resolve it? It's what you're asking. What are you going to do? You know, it's enough to just yak. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So here's the thing, Bob. We're going to refile that. I hope. Now I got people working with me, so I got to make sure they're down with this. But I ain't got it reverse. I'm all forward. And so here's the deal. I say that we start a new grand jury right there in Payne County because they illegally did this, because they did not certify it. We have the evidence. They did not certify it. The judge lied. The secretary. Now, I'm going to say I can't prove the judge knowingly lied. I can prove that the judge failed to do his duty when he was notified it was a lie. He refused to do his duty. I think because he's under such political pressure. But again,
what's happening to our justice system? Why are we having so much corruption? I mean, this is just one. There's a number of corruptions going on across the state.
It's all across the state, Bob. This is a cabal all across the state. And again, is it the money? Is it the political power? I mean, this guy was appointed by Stitt. I'm sure he's probably getting pressured from there. They've got governor candidates. I'm sure there's pressure from there. Nothing's been said about Drummond, but Drummond's office is in this, and you better bet Drummond's coming along probably by the heels. But again, no telling what kind of political pressure these people are receiving to stop this. You've got one DA over there who's on the DA council who has multiple influence over the Capitol. And again, are they using this to gain money? I can't say that. But are they using this to further their political power and to shut cases down, to cause their narrative? And are they doing illegal stuff? I fully believe so. We've seen that DA over there in Wagner County abuse his position and influence over the grand jury when he shouldn't even been a part of. He's the subject. He's in there in court arguing over the numbers, whether they should try to kill this. He's subject to it. How is he in the court? Why would the court even allow it? Why would he not recuse himself? I mean, these are basic, easy things that anybody would know is improper, and yet the court's just doing it. And again, they are doing it because they can do it, and there's nobody that can hold them accountable. But Bob, we go back, we get a grand jury. Here's the question though, Bob. Do you think, let me pick your brain. Do you think if we do a new grand jury, we put Judge Reese in the thing, because no question he ought to be investigated for issuing this warrant improperly, for terminating improperly, for not doing his due diligence to check if these were certified. So again, he needs to be on there. If the Supreme Court does nothing, they should be on there. Not the Supreme Court justice. The entire court should be on there. Now, Bob, if you have speakers, former speakers, AGs, the Supreme Court, the entire Supreme Court of Oklahoma, and the county judge, where are you going to get? Do you think you can get a proper trial? Do you think you can get a fair trial with that?
No.
So where you go, Bob?
Well, not that it probably wouldn't do any good. Have you done anything with the Attorney General?
Well, the Attorney General's kind of big part of this. His first assistant is right there in it. I've got some evidence that I would say would link him directly to it. And so again, I don't see him being able to even weigh in on it because he's just as much in it as anybody else. So who do you go to there? I think, Bob, you have to go to the feds. I think that if we get this grand jury seated, I think we have to make a request just to say There's
It's
no
federal.
way you just can't. I mean, you got the Supreme Court justices, every one of them. You got Reese, you got the AG, you got all of these people. And again, I don't think that you can get it. And we've already seen the political influence. And again, I think that we had to add obstruction into this grand jury. I think that this grand jury that just got terminated, no question, was massively obstructed. We got attacked from every direction. Darrell getting arrested, $1 million. That's so bogus. The judge coming in that shouldn't even been allowed, bogus. The DA coming in that shouldn't be allowed, bogus. Again, terminating, letting political people in, letting political people off that should have never even occurred. All of this pretty bogus. And again, I think it all amounts to obstruction. And I think that if we get it into a federal court system, you're going to see a whole different ballgame. And so that, Bob, that's where I'm looking to go. That's what I'm trying to do. That's a pretty tall tree to climb. But I think with what's going on, the people of Payne County, if that Jesse Butler case doesn't, Bob, shut that dog. Shut that dog.
Well, we only got 2 minutes. I can't.
So here's the deal, Bob. If Jesse Butler's case and arresting grandma, if Jesse Butler being turned out after all these multiple sex crimes, and grandma getting arrested and Darrell being held on $1 million, I'm calling him the $1 million man.
Crazy right there.
Darrell's a $1 million man, guys. If those things don't fire you up in Payne County, if that don't fire you up across the state, you people all over the state of Oklahoma ought to be driving to Stillwater. I drive up there all the time to try to assist and do stuff. If this don't fire you up, you need to get to Stillwater. It's time. Stillwater is where everything breaks. Stillwater is that's Bob. I think it was the Comanches used to plant the arrow and tie themselves to their arrow and say, "Hey, I'm not moving," and they would fight everybody. They would not move. You know what I'm saying? I love that story of them. And guess what? That's kind of Payne County is my arrow in the dirt. I'm planting that arrow. I'm tying myself to it, and I'm saying, guess what? This is where it all stops, and this is where we expose everything.
Well, this is just crazy. I mean, in the United States or in Oklahoma, that we'd have this much corruption in Oklahoma in the judicial system.
In red Oklahoma, that's what I'm telling people. This is red Oklahoma. This is where it needs to get straightened out. This is where we've got to correct ourselves. You can look at Washington, fine. This is your backyard, people. Oklahoma, get in your own backyard. Let's clean up our own backyard. Bob, you're going to have to take care of that dog now.
Yeah, she
done went wild.
She was a good dog laying down there for
She's growing. She's growing. Hey, guys, we got one more minute. Again, we appreciate everybody. Hey, I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. You can catch me on jj4ok.com. You get on there, get you some cool t-shirts. You get on there, you donate. You can look at what we're doing. Go to Justin Humphrey Facebook. Look at the video we put out today. Check out Elephant in the Room if you want to know more about what's going on in the Department of Corrections and all the things that we talked about. Check out OCP on Fridays. We do that podcast. Guys, we got all kinds of stuff going on. Keeping Oklahoma informed of what's going on in Oklahoma. We'll try to get more information on this Salisal walkout on the 21st. Y'all be watching that, as well as we'll try to locate that inmate that DOC is trying to hide. We're going to try to find him. Possibly, Bob, me and you may look at that Monday or Tuesday, see what you got going on. We may go try to locate him as well. Hey, guys, we appreciate every one of you. Bob, thank you.
Well, thanks. I'm sorry about
that. Get y'all under control, Bob.
Well,
catch y'all later. Y'all have a blessed day.
Okay, thank you.